Your parents bought a house in their 20s. You cannot afford rent in your 30s. Your parents retired at 60. You do not even believe retirement is possible for you. This is not laziness. This is not avocado toast. Something fundamentally broke in the global economy, and nobody is being honest about what it actually is. Today, we fix that. Welcome back to No Filter. I am Adam. Today we are talking about money, not in a boring financial advisor way, in a brutally honest, why is everything so expensive and why does my salary feel like it is going backwards kind of way. My guest is Dr. Ryan Seth, economist, financial psychologist, author of The Broken Ladder, Why Hard Work No Longer Guarantees a Good Life. Dr. Ryan, welcome to No Filter. This one is personal for me and I think for everyone listening.
Adam, thank you. And I want to say right away, this conversation matters because financial shame is one of the most destructive forces in modern life. People feel personally responsible for systemic problems. And part of what I want to do today is separate what is your fault from what is genuinely not your fault, because that distinction changes everything about how you respond.
I want to start with something my listeners feel every single day. They work hard, they are educated, they do everything right, and they still feel financially stuck. Is that their fault, or is the system actually broken?
The core problem is what economists call the decoupling of wages and productivity. For most of the 20th century, when workers became more productive, their wages went up proportionally. That relationship broke in the early 1970s in most Western economies. Since then, productivity has continued rising, meaning workers are generating more value, but wages have barely kept pace with inflation. The wealth being created went somewhere. It went to asset owners, people who already own stocks, property, businesses, not to the people doing the work.
So it is not personal failure. The math genuinely changed and nobody told us. What changed? Give me the simple version.
R3. In 1980, the average CEO earned about 30 times the average worker salary. Today, that ratio is over 350 to 1 in many major corporations. That is not because CEOs became 10 times better at their jobs. It is because the rules of the economic game changed through deregulation, tax policy, globalization, in ways that systematically redirected wealth upward. This is not a conspiracy. It is documented economic history, and the people most affected by it are the ones who were never taught it happened.
Wages stagnated. Asset prices exploded. The gap between the two is now impossible to close through work alone. That is the whole story in 2 sentences.
In London, a median-priced home now costs over 14 times the median annual salary. In Sydney, it is over 12 times. In major Pakistani and Indian cities, the ratio has doubled in the last 15 years, as urban real estate became an investment asset rather than housing. When property becomes an investment vehicle for the wealthy, it stops being affordable shelter for everyone else. We built a system where land, which nobody created, became the primary mechanism for generating intergenerational wealth, and people who were born too late to get in at affordable prices are now permanently locked out.
How bad is the wealth gap right now globally?
Inflation is psychological as much as economic. What makes inflation particularly damaging to mental health is the invisibility of it. Your salary number goes up. Your bank account feels the same or worse. You cannot see the mechanism, you just feel the squeeze. Research from the American Psychological Association consistently shows that financial uncertainty, not just financial scarcity, is the primary driver of money-related anxiety. People can handle being poor if they understand their situation. What breaks people is working hard, seeing numbers that look okay, and still falling behind without being able to explain.
The richest 1% own more wealth than the bottom 50% combined. That number used to sound like radical politics. Now it is just a statistic.
The student loan crisis is one of the most significant wealth transfer mechanisms operating right now. 18-year-olds are being asked to make 40-year financial decisions with no financial education, enormous social pressure, and complete uncertainty about the future job market. In the United States, total student debt is now over $1.7 trillion. An entire generation started adult life in a financial hole. And the institutions that sold them that debt, universities, had zero accountability for whether the degree actually produced the promised economic outcome. It is genuinely one of the great financial scandals of the last 50 years.
Housing specifically, because I talk to people in their late 20s and 30s and they have completely given up on owning a home. Is that realistic, or are they being dramatic?
For degrees in medicine, engineering, law, technology, if the cost is reasonable, the return on investment is still there. For humanities and social science degrees at expensive private institutions, the math is increasingly hard to justify. This is not a statement about the value of those subjects. History and philosophy are enormously valuable. The question is whether paying $60,000 or $80,000 for them, in a world where most of that content is freely available, is a rational financial decision. More young people need to ask that question honestly before they sign the loan papers.
In 1970, a house cost about 3 times the average annual salary. Today, in most major cities, it costs 10 to 15 times. That is not a mindset problem. That is arithmetic.
Consumer debt in every major economy has been rising in direct correlation with social media adoption. We are buying things we cannot afford to impress people we do not know, to feel adequate against a standard that does not actually exist. The developing world faces a uniquely cruel version of this crisis. Globalization raised expectations everywhere simultaneously. Social media made every young person in Karachi or Lagos or Jakarta aware of global living standards. But local economies are not generating opportunities at anywhere near the pace required to meet those expectations. Youth unemployment in Pakistan is over 10% officially, and significantly higher informally. Inflation has hit food and energy, the things that consume the largest share of low-income budgets, hardest. And the safety nets that exist in wealthier countries, unemployment benefits, public housing, subsidized healthcare, are either absent or severely underfunded. The expectation gap between what young people see as possible and what their local economy can actually deliver is one of the most politically and socially destabilizing forces in the world right now. R13.
So homeownership for the average young person is becoming mathematically impossible in most cities. That is a massive statement.
Instagram wealth culture has created what I call a financial identity crisis at a mass scale. People are making financial decisions, what car to buy, what apartment to rent, what clothes to wear, based on the lifestyle standards they absorb from social media, standards that represent a tiny minority of actual earners. The average person, seeing luxury lifestyle content all day, develops an unconscious sense that this is normal, that they are failing if they do not have it.
And the people who already own property keep getting richer from it automatically. The wealth gap compounds itself. That is genuinely infuriating.
The gig economy was sold to workers as liberation, flexibility, autonomy, be your own boss. What it actually delivered was the complete elimination of the employer-employee social contract that took a century of labor movements to establish. No sick pay, no pension contributions, no job security, no protection from arbitrary termination, no employer health insurance. The corporation gets flexible labor with no obligations. The worker gets precarious income with all the risk. The language of entrepreneurship was used to make exploitation sound empowering.
Let us talk about inflation, because everyone is feeling it, but nobody really explains what it is doing to us psychologically.
The research here is remarkably consistent across cultures and income levels. Financial stress activates the same neurological threat response as physical danger. Chronically elevated cortisol from financial worry impairs decision-making, making it harder to make good financial decisions when you most need to. It disrupts sleep, it damages immune function, it is a direct cause of hypertension and cardiovascular disease, and critically, it narrows cognitive bandwidth. Studies show that people dealing with severe financial stress lose the equivalent of about 13 IQ points in cognitive function. Financial poverty creates cognitive poverty, which makes escaping financial poverty even harder. It is a trap with a biological component.
Your salary goes up 5%. Inflation is 8%. You got a raise and got poorer simultaneously. Most people feel this but cannot explain it. That explanation needs to be on billboards.
The updated research from Matthew Killingsworth at Wharton found that well-being continues to rise with income well beyond earlier estimates, with no clear ceiling in the data. But the mechanism matters enormously. Money that removes chronic stress and provides genuine security, housing stability, healthcare access, not worrying about next month's bills, produces large and lasting happiness gains.
Student loans. Education was supposed to be the ticket out of poverty. Now, it is the first debt trap people fall into at age 8.
Money spent on status, luxury goods, expensive cars, designer clothes, produces very small and very temporary happiness gains. The research is clear. Security buys happiness. Status does not.
A16. You borrow money at 18 to pay for a degree that may or may not get you a job that may or may not pay enough to repay the loan. That is not an investment. That is a gamble with someone else's money.
Compounding is the most powerful financial force in existence and the least understood. Einstein allegedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he said it or not, the math is extraordinary. If you invest $200 per month starting at age 22 with an average annual return of 8%, you will have approximately $1 million by age 65.
Depends entirely on the degree and the cost. A medical degree from a state university? Yes. A $60,000 arts degree from a private college? The math is very hard to make work.
If you wait until 32 to start the same investment, you will have approximately $490,000. Same investment, same return. 10 years earlier start, doubled outcome. The asset that young people have that wealthy people desperately try to buy back is time, and most young people are spending it instead of investing it.
What should young people actually do right now? Practically, real advice. 3 things. Live below your means aggressively in your 20s. Invest early, even small amounts. Compound interest is the only legal wealth cheat code that exists. And build income streams, not just a salary. One income source is the most financially dangerous position a person can be in.
Cautiously optimistic, and here is why. Every generation that faced a genuinely broken economic system produced a cohort of people who adapted, innovated, and built new models.
The compound interest. Explain that simply because I think a lot of people glaze over when they hear it. $100 invested at 20 with average market returns becomes roughly $2,100 by retirement. The same $100 invested at 40 becomes about $430. Starting early is worth more than investing more money later. Time is the ingredient money cannot buy.
The Great Depression generation built the middle class. The post-war generation built modern prosperity. Today's young people are building, slowly, imperfectly, new models of work, community, and wealth that do not depend on the old, broken systems. The creator economy, remote work, international freelancing, community ownership models, cooperative housing.
Last question. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the financial future for young people today?
International freelancing, community ownership models, cooperative housing. These are not perfect solutions, but they are genuine adaptations, and history suggests that human beings eventually figure out how to thrive in whatever system they inherit. I believe this generation will too, but it will require being far more financially literate and far more skeptical of the old scripts than any generation before them.
Everyone go follow Dr. Ryan Seth right now. Get the book, The Broken Ladder, and listen. If you are young and you feel like you are doing everything right and still falling behind, you are not crazy. The math actually changed. Now go learn the new math. I am Adam. This is No Filter, episode 116. Send this to every person in your life who thinks financial struggle is a personal failure. See you next week.